Actually, I
capitalism,
kind of want the
all of the
G in
gains
there.
in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be
I
an
gotta find
owner,
some
and now
pictures
suddenly
over this,
any gain
stickers
in
over the Mets
automation
here.
is a gain for everybody.
Don't care for those
If you
Mets.
grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive income.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number, or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know,
It's a
Zach.
tough one. I
It's
know,
really hard
and maybe
to.
comparing numbers is not Jeremy Strong's. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. I'm your host, Zach, and joining me, as usual, is Dan Platt of the Albany Greens. How you doing?
Yeah. Happy Passover.
Happy Passover.
Not doing a. I'm doing a Seder tomorrow night with the fam. But I'm just fine not doing any Jewish stuff. Really, I don't feel like a good. I don't feel like a Jew lately. Um, I had short burst of my mother about she doesn't get the Israel-Palestine conflict. In her words, I don't really understand it, and because it's like aren't they? Isn't Israel your people? You
Right.
know, and I'm like, no, mom, it hasn't. I haven't thought this way even during Hebrew school. I was skeptical, or in high school when my cousin went and did birthright and he came back and he was very honest about, or he could relate that it was just a program to go there and marry a Israeli girl and settle down and
Yeah.
take some Palestine and take some West Bank families
Yeah,
home.
kind of a eugenics
Um,
project,
yeah, right.
almost. Yeah.
And I've said like I'm not going to do birthright until there's a Palestinian state that's worth living in. Essentially, was my terms if I was going to do it. And of course, that didn't happen within the time frame of being was it up to 25, age 25.
Yeah.
So totally missed that deadline. Also, I didn't give a shit. If I was going to go to Israel for vacation, I would want a self-guided tour, and I was not going to do it via Birthright or even a tour company. But anyway, today, speaking of people getting evicted and whatever, we're going to take on the heavy topic, as it always is, as we are in a housing, some call it an affordability housing crisis,
Affordability crisis.
or the housing crisis. I think we need a spiffier, sexier name. Maybe we call it the land crisis or the landlord crisis
House
or
hoarding crisis.
house hoarding. I something like that. It's just
Yeah.
we're struggling to even have a conversation about positive rights in this country. Obviously, more are flocking to this viewpoint over time as things get worse and worse, and as they get worse, these issues which have been percolating under for the last decade are really starting to become national issues. For example, the Supreme Court is now hearing a case where this town in New Jersey, I think, was basically criminalizing homelessness by, and they're arguing that no, we're not criminalizing homelessness, which is a status that's unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment. Um, Not the Eighth Amendment. Yes, Eighth Amendment. But it's because of the act of camping or sleeping outside, and the fact that it was even having a blanket and sleeping in a public space could be construed as being something you could be arrested for.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's
the
trespassing.
justices.
Right.
I was reading, not reading, sorry, listening to Supreme Court justices, uh, right and left or liberal, um, grilling the lawyer for the town with all of their, it's what they're supposed to do. So I don't know how they're going to rule, but it's clear that homelessness is a status, and your law pretty much says it's like it's only for the homeless, because the police of the town gave their testimony, and they were clear that, like, well, if somebody's just napping and they obviously, have a home, we're not going to arrest them.
How do you know
So
someone
it's,
obviously has a home? That's
I don't know, someone you have the deed to your house in your pocket, right?
right.
For
Yeah,
your tenant lease.
you just happen to have a piece of mail on you that has your name and address and everything.
One justice pointed out, like, there's only one shelter in town and it only has 100 beds, but you have thousands of homeless. That's the crisis that they're going so hard with their ordinance. And they basically, like, if you rule against us, like, we won't have any way of stopping them from taking public land from, like, they see it as a violation, like they're using it, and that means no one else can use it. Like, well, I guess that's like all other land too. Someone's using it, so you can't. And as long as we have those kind of property relations, and the whole thing of bringing up, like, sleeping is a biological necessity, so,
Right.
like, it brings into other questioning about public urination, and, like,
Sure.
well, there's businesses who, anyway, the back and forth is both comical and sad, because it's like, clearly there's no actual positive right to go to the bathroom, because there's never really fully any actual availability. You're not guaranteed any availability
Right.
in any way. Even if businesses did allow anyone to non-patrons to use their bathroom, they're not open all the time.
No, they're not.
And it's kind of odd that somebody, like, in the comments section was like, I live in DC and I've literally pissed in the bushes next to the national monuments. But then followed the rest of their comment was also like, but then these bums are using, like, bathrooms and they have to be cleaned every time anyone uses it. Like, and they actually use the word dirty. They didn't use illegal. They didn't use, like, migrant. They used, like, fuck, what did they use? It was like not quite a slur, but like foreigner,
Like
but like,
vagrant, or
no, it was, well, I'm not gonna remember it. I should have noted it, but it was such an odd way of, like, it was very old timey way of talking
indigent.
about a foreigner.
Oh, talking about a foreigner. Oh.
Yeah, like they, like, clearly, like, they don't belong here, kind of word.
Hmm.
Anyway, and then you got, like, YouTube channels like Cash Jordan, which I showed you one of his, right? The guy who talks in the camera. Anyway, he's
I
it's
think you
the
did.
joke with him. The joke with him is that he titles his videos "It Begins," and the view count doubles. Like, he gets 1 million views when he adds "It Begins." Migrants now paid more than veterans.
I should try that for the next time that we stream together. Say it
It begins,
begins
yeah,
left field episode 30.
yeah. Dude, try that.
See how that works out.
We gotta do everything we can, right?
Right?
So squatters' rights are very weak in America, barely exist. But if you were to ask the standard white toast middle American, squatters' rights are like a big problem in America. You have these deadbeats taking my home over, and and it's such, it's the violation. It's like I was raped.
Right.
Because, like, oh yeah, some deadbeats, they are criminals, they are, like, scamming and whatever, and, like,
Sure.
okay, so what, it's like,
Some
but
people that have
again,
houses do
at,
that too.
right, and so it's but they're doing it legally. This is illegal,
Oh.
or it's
The legal
insane that
stuff.
it's not illegal.
Oh.
So it's not illegal to squat, even the minor way where you literally just have, like, you just get a reprieve before your court date. Because the squatting rights that's being talked about is just the ability to claim you're a tenant, which means the police can't drag you out. It has to be settled in housing court. It
Sure.
becomes a housing issue, a civil matter, not a criminal matter, right? So you have these landlords or owners who want to charge people trespassing, and in a practical sense they are. But house, which we and maybe some common law doesn't consider to be a commodity, because that's where some of these rights really come from. Like, we just have the leftover of common law. We really don't have anything else that was put in American law. We really just have leftover common law, I think, which is why it's so weak and archaic compared to what Europeans have. So we're going to explore the reactionary mind in these various videos reacting to the squatters. Now, one of the videos I think is a woman who's a little bit more sympathetic and even-handed. We'll get to her, I guess, but let's check out this one first, which covers the squatter hunter, who is one of the heroes championed by DeSantis, as Florida is the first state to amend their laws to basically make it now a criminal offense to trespass in a home, and you can't claim you're a squatter. If you did, it would be a civil matter, and that's what allows people to at least stay there for a month or however long the court date. Or there's also the loopholes where if you do claim a place as your address and you are there for a certain amount of time, then you can actually claim it fully. After a number of years, which is what makes our squatter law so weak, is that you have to be there so long, and there's all these hoops, and and sometimes they're properties owned by a bank,
or they can't find an owner for years and years,
right? But because it's sometimes bank, and literally so one of those stories will be like this, and we can laugh at her plight. I mean, it's her plight in two ways, basically. Her real plight is that the bank foreclosed on her home and kicked her out. But the real crime is that after she was kicked out of her home, which is now the bank's home, somebody squatted in it.
Oh,
and that's the violation she's upset about.
Offense.
That's what she's mad about, not the bank foreclosing. So anyway.
Yeah. Let's go to it.
Time's a waste.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is a civil matter, and you. He wants to. He wants.
We'll let the police do that.
No, that's fine.
This guy still can't be here.
Well, we're coming in. We're coming in.
You're a home buyer, somebody or a young person looking to buy a home. You need a bit of a reset.
There is a possibility on the other side of this that
we need a reset.
Inflation could actually be quite.
There's a war raging on.
I wonder what they mean by a reset.
Like just the Great Reset. I have no idea. Actually, it's
a reset of the interest rates, or
anyway. So here's what's interesting. So we have this real estate mindset guy, as seen in the corner there.
Yeah.
And he's wearing he does not comment on it at all. So this is just projection from my part, but he's wearing a Goonies shirt.
Yeah.
And in Goonies, who's the ultimate bad guy in the Goonies?
Yeah.
It's not the bank robbing family, though they are bad. The real villain is the real estate company that wants to buy out all the parents.
Buy out the town and kick everyone out of town. Yeah.
So it's weird
kind of resort or something.
that he's wearing a Goonies shirt.
Well,
and he's a real estate advice guy.
Anyways,
let's go.
When you're this much of a hipster, you have to clothe yourself in several layers.
Oh yeah, he's got the real hipster glasses.
Yeah. So I'm sure he's just wearing the Goonies ironically. He actually rooted for the bad guys.
On right now in the American housing market as more and more squatters continue to invade houses and try to take them over. And so today, you guys, we're going to talk.
Look at this language he's loading it with. Invade houses, as though there's people
Not the first time
there.
you're going to hear this, Zach. Get used to it, Zach. You're going to hear
It's
this.
So ridiculous.
Framing
there's no one living there. You can't invade empty
every
space.
Video.
Whatever.
Talk about all of those things.
All I did was type in squatters' rights on YouTube. I didn't get any positive videos. I didn't get. It's all right. I found one explaining it, but it was but they're all from the viewpoint of a landlord. So
how is the left so anemic at this point that there's not even videos? Like you'd expect that. I don't know, like seriously,
the loss, like a law,
or some of these people.
The Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah, exactly. They're too busy complaining about status or whatever beef or whatever keeps them in the ether, I guess. It was never a good platform to do this content, I guess. But I better to make it so it's in the algorithm, so it comes up in a search. Maybe, it's not like these are. Let's see, this one's like almost 100K subscribers, so it's like there are lefties that can do that.
Yeah, maybe
but
I'll just,
no,
change the title of this video on YouTube to include
squatters' rights.
See if we get some more
comes
hits on
up.
that.
I'll do a test search in a week.
And in their minds, maybe because we have 15 million vacant homes, 13 million of which are vacant year-round, squatters think they can just move in and take over.
Just because we have
rights.
13 million all the time vacant homes, people think they can just move into them.
The right to live in a place, actual right to shelter,
damn it.
the audacity. Yeah,
Like they have to be vacant. It's like surplus labor. We can't have everyone be employed because otherwise, wages would have to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just like if all the houses weren't vacant, what would the real estate market would be hurt? I guess.
Right. Well,
there wouldn't be the demand there
right.
to raise the housing prices.
It wouldn't be the artificial scarcity. So it would hurt the housing market.
It's so angry.
And also, guys, we're going to look at the heroes in the fight who call themselves the Squatter Squad. And we're going to see exactly what they're doing to help Americans across the nation to get these squatters out of their houses.
I would think the Squatter Squad would be people helping people squat.
Yeah. Like, I feel like.
But they're the Squatter Hunter, though. I don't know if they're called but that's just appropriation for you, I guess.
Well, of course.
It's like saying you're the fascist fighters and you're the fascists who fight.
The fascists who fight, yeah.
We're the fascist fighters.
Yeah, well, is it not clear in our name? Who's fascists who fight? Yes.
Fascist fighters.
Right.
Fascist, fighters.
Yeah.
We're the squatters, squad. Like how the police, they call themselves the criminal squad.
No, yeah.
Okay.
To the viral video of the undocumented migrant that's suggesting that people migrate to the U.S. to invade houses, take them over, and potentially sell them to profit off of them. Now, often, guys, this is done under fraudulent pretenses. So, in other words, the majority of these people,
a lot of landlords.
Oh, I'm sure they were terrified, just quaking in their boots when they saw one guy who may or may not be undocumented saying things.
I think he's Venezuelan who hasn't. I don't know if he's been in America or not. That's the thing.
Still, even if it was,
he's Venezuelan.
Is one dude. It's not a movement if they can find one video on TikTok about it.
But it allows them to imagine there be.
Well, that is
you see that, and then you see the horde of migrants at the border, and then you see Joe Biden
see it in your
letting
mind's
them,
eye, sure, yeah,
letting them in.
have no right to be in these houses to begin with. And so depending on your level of frustration or depending on whether or not you enjoy squatter rights, this next video, you're either going to be upset or you're going to be happy. Now, personally, I feel like these people that you're about to watch are the new heroes in the fight against squatter rights. And again, you guys, remember what I'm saying. Often these squatters are taking over these properties illegally.
At least he said properties and not homes, because they're not homes.
Right.
If someone's living there and so someone's home, obviously somebody isn't
then
invading.
It's an invasion. Then it's a home invasion.
Home invasion, yes.
Not an empty box invasion.
Oh, yeah. No, we put a 24-hour notice of inspection, and I have a power of attorney. So we can come in and do an inspection. There's nothing illegal with that.
No, well, the police are going to come.
Yeah, that's fine. We're coming in.
Right? You got to go to court, though.
No,
okay.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay, we'll see. Is this in court?
Look, let's just get a little
Here's the deal.
Here,
Here's the deal. This is a civil matter, and you.
Okay, well,
He wants to. He wants.
We'll let the police do that.
No, that's fine.
This guy still can't be here.
Well, we're
This guy
coming
still
in.
can't be
We're
here.
coming in.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone with the sergeant.
I have a power of attorney, so to do the inspection.
It doesn't
So
matter. It still has to
yeah.
go to court. Still has to go to the court. We were never served with a 3-day notice, dude.
This isn't a 3-day notice. This is a home inspection.
Okay, well, no.
This is a home inspection.
No, you guys already came and tried to bust in the last time. You
The
guys didn't make a
sergeant, the
good impression the
sergeant
first time.
the sergeant said I have the right to be here, so they can call the sergeant. We're coming in, you guys. We're coming in. Yeah, we're coming in. We have the right. So we're coming in. Yeah.
We're gonna press charges.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Take me to court. Take me to court.
So what you just witnessed is the
It certainly has
squatter.
it certainly has the energy of a square up. Like these, they really want to throw down. It's like you know, the immigrant the border patrol
Yeah.
and migrants or something, and it's like,
whatever it was.
yeah, so you got this guy's coming in with his gang, and it's like they're doing a hostile home inspection. Like, I guess it's the equivalent of like a citizen's arrest, but it's a citizen's home inspection to show that's like they want footage to show like, oh, these squatters live in squalor and this, and they're not taking care of the house, they're not responsible, so why should they even have it? You know, if it's obviously, it's like not obvious. It's a media war that's being waged, and I guess pro squatter content definitely needs to be made. But the problem is some squatters or people who politically squat, they're really lazy. I mean, they're punks and they're basically sloppy, and they don't know, they can't do like PR. They all have problems. You know, they're not our best. But they're doing it because they are probably the most vulnerable, the most marginalized people. So they're not suit wearing, you know, business communists. They're punk anarchists who are, you know, that sometimes have very problematic views, which was the case with a squatter house here in Albany, where they made the big fucking mistake of wanting to draw attention to their squatting, and got covered by the Hearst paper, and so the sheriff comes and evicts them basically like the next week.
Oh, jeez.
So they basically play themselves for the sake of publicity and getting people to know what they were doing.
Do you think
And they made the big mistake wasn't really doing the news story. It was that they let the reporter know where they were and gave him a tour. So no OPSEC, basically. And
did they get anyone on their side? Was
there was not any defense organization, because we're not that kind of organized city. And the Housing Coalition is very much a nonprofit legalist arm, and
so they're not going to
though
like that.
This was a few years ago, now there actually is something of a tenants' rights movement as far as the DSA chapters, both young and current, and we have the housing rights nonprofit, Tenants United, and they are doing tenant organizing and mostly going for just cause eviction and whatever, and tenants' rights in particular. So it's tenants' rights is the focus, and organizing tenants associations, not squatters' rights. Squatters' rights is like we're 5 steps away from fighting for squatters' rights.
Right.
But it's more like that's the punk anarchist like strategy of fighting for squatters' rights and doing that, versus fighting the more mainstream but also just the democratic socialist strategy, which is in the system / accommodationist with, well, let's just organize the tenants like in unions and try to get better tenant protection laws, which of course it hurts the landlords. I mean, it does make it better for tenants.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a growing call from such groups and coalitions in New York, at least, for social housing, even proposing it. So that's putting that on the agenda is there's progress happening. But squatters' rights is just nowhere in any of that. So I'm bringing this issue up because the right and the reactionaries are bringing this up, and they're actually getting it. The last story will be New York. They're winning on squatters' rights. We're losing it. A battle where we don't even know we were fighting. because it's being fought particularly by the proletariat, by or the lumpenproles, the people who aren't organized, aren't really that class conscious, but they're doing what they need to.
Right.
But they're
So
not
what
being
you
the
just
vanguard
witnessed-
of the revolution either. So
True.
because they're
Is the
pretty much powerless against what's with like this, the counter punch.
Yeah.
Squatter squad basically gaining entry to a property legally without having to go to court under the premises of a home inspection. Quite brilliant, actually, especially considering these squatters, again, are there fraudulently. And I will have this video linked in my description if you guys want to watch it. But essentially what happens is they gain entry legally from a home inspection, and then they basically see they don't even have a lease to begin with. The inspector changes the locks and takes their property outside and puts it on the curb because, again, of a simple property inspection. I'm not saying that will work under every situation, but it's certainly nice to see these people get a taste of their own medicine.
I'm not even sure how you logistically do that. Like, how does a crew of like 3 guys do a home inspection and basically, without the law, like they're not law enforcement, they're basically carrying out an eviction?
Yeah, how are they pushing all these people out?
And how what they're doing is legal. And I think essentially they're working in a gray area, and that's why the squatter hunters are admired, because, as he said, they're getting a taste of their own medicine because they're acting in the legal gray area as well.
Yeah, like tasted their own medicine when they squatted and threw that poor family that didn't live there out on the street. Tasted their own medicine that they get thrown out on the street.
Right. And it's always a rental property too, by the way. It's never like, of course, no one's really losing any home. They're losing rental value.
Mm-hmm.
It's anyway. And we believe property is theft in the first place. So of course, any accessory conversation of who's breaking the law here and who's criminal, the whole concept is criminal to us, but we're crazy kooks.
I don't know.
At the moment,
he's glossing over a lot of details here, though. Like, how did they manage to get all of these?
Oh yeah, these videos we're gonna watch. All these videos we're gonna watch, they're gonna have so little context. It's gonna make our head spins, but we gotta push through, right?
Yeah.
He wants to.
We'll let the police do that.
No, that's fine.
This guy still can't be here.
Well, we're coming in. We're coming in. Everything's safe.
You guys see they're removing all of their stuff right now. 8 police officers.
The owners, guys are gonna spend a little time in there.
Okay. So if you have a squatter problem, you may want to give the squatter squad a call and have them work their magic. Now, you may have listened to a recent viral video from an undocumented migrant that is suggesting that migrants invade the U.S. housing market, take over the property,
That's
and
funny.
Potentially...
He uses undocumented migrant. He doesn't say illegal.
Yeah,
illegal immigrant.
That language now.
That's the power of each, because that language was changed 3 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people like him complained about it.
Oh,
now absolutely. They use it, but they'll use the language of criminality and whatever. It's odd, but it's just a matter of like the language can change, but the concept stays the same.
Right.
That's something I'm reading about when it comes to political correct or how language changed. And I'm reading a book about the 90s by Cloisterman. It's fun.
Nice.
Sell it for a profit. I'm not joking, you guys. You guys got to listen to this.
Oh my God. It's like any kind of...
pensado invadir una casa en United States. Ya que me enteré que existe una ley
Read
que
these subtitles, guys.
Que si una casa no está habitada, podemos expropiarla. Capichi, muchachos, aquí en United States también se aplica la de invasión de terreno. Y creo que ese será
Land
mi próximo
invasion.
negocio.
Invading.
Invadir casas abandonadas, ya que me he buscado unos códigos con mis amigos africanos y me dijeron que ya llevan como 7 casas
They've taken
expropiadas.
7 homes
Y
over
como
already.
dice el
They've
dicho,
got
papi,
7 houses.
hay que buscar.
Yeah, how many of them have they sold, dude? Like, to be able to sell something, you have to have the deed.
And when he's talking about, that's true. That's why squatters' rights is not property rights, because you don't even, like, you get the deed and title if
That's
you
like
were there for like 6 years.
years.
It's
It's
amazing,
like
depending
a
on the state.
decade almost
But
in many
yeah,
places.
yeah, right. Depending on the state.
Yeah, you're not seizing 27
Um,
houses at once.
I like
and
the word
selling them
"seize." I mean,
all.
maybe he's like he's Venezuelan, so maybe he's like a Socialist Party member, and or at
I'm
least
sure
has
that's
been
the connection he's going to make. Yeah.
maybe if he's been educated. I don't know. I'm just like, but his tone, because he's like he's talking like, you know, this is like a big impassioned call to action, you know.
Yeah.
Buscar la vuelta. Y la vuelta ahorita mismo es invadir casas, ya que nos encontramos en situación de calle y es la única manera que tenemos para no vivir en la calle y no ser una carga pública. Capichi, la ley dice que las casas abandonadas, deterioradas y que esté en mal estado, podemos llegar y repararlas, vivir en ella,
And
y
if
si
you can,
podemos
sell it.
venderla, hasta pedir créditos con ella. ¿Qué dicen ustedes?
Yeah, if you can is doing a lot of work in that sentence. But
And he's talking about when you seize it, improve it.
right.
And these
He's
are
not just saying
deteriorating
flip it.
houses. And these are deteriorating
Right,
houses, right? The
derelict
ones that are
properties.
abandoned, even by a bank ownership or
Uh-huh.
whatever. You know, it's just like there's no owner. Or suddenly, if there is, and you squat in it, then they'll suddenly show up.
Yeah.
Which would be great, because then the local municipality could maybe actually, like, you know, get their fines from them for all the codes they probably violated and whatever. Because that's a problem in my city. Code violators, and we can't find them, or it's such a freaking hassle that's like not worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Legal
cost to track them down is more than you'd get. Yeah.
Or it's in, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. But
God bless this.
This whole viral video, so called, I'm not buying any portion of it, because he is.
It's viral on the right. I don't know if any lefties are sharing this or whatever.
I'm not saying that it's not viral. I'm just saying I don't think the video is real. Like, I don't believe that this guy is invading and buying houses. He's not in front of a house, for one thing. He's on a random driveway.
He's on a ranch.
Yeah, so like,
ranch.
Show me the proof of it. But also,
but he says some African Americans seized 7 homes.
Yeah, that's what he says.
But yes. But look, can you really believe anything on TikTok?
No,
I make a video on TikTok.
I don't think any of this is true. I think this is probably just right-wing rage bait, whether it's from the right or left. I guess it doesn't matter.
That would be one way to get some eyeballs, is to make some rage bait. And
yeah, because I mean, you know, how hard is it to make a TikTok video out on a country road? Not very hard.
Take me home.
I don't know about y'all, but that was pretty brutal. I mean, invade, take over, repair, and sell undocumented illegally? Under what pretenses? I mean, this is crazy. I mean, they understand.
Because it's stolen land, asshole. Yeah, that guy's probably Chicano. He looks like Chicano to me. He's the indigenous here. It's his land. He's taking it. That's why he's like, I think he kind of put in the words, we're taking it back, Daddy.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the pretense. You know what the entitlement is? Coming to this country and thinking you own it all, and the government has good claim to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because might makes right.
Was not started by bloodbath and legally questionable doctrines. Yeah.
These undocumented migrants understand how, you know, we have so many abandoned properties. You know, sell the properties, fix them up, right? But legally, tell me how you guys feel about that, and people invading the housing market, taking it over. I mean, to me,
you're taking over the housing market,
right?
Yep. You know, when my wife and I were looking for a house to buy, We
Yeah.
kept getting just outbid by squatters coming in and just taking the property instead. It wasn't these private companies coming in and outbidding everybody else. It was squatters who are taking over the housing market. Just, yeah, taking over the housing market.
Let me know when you reach your limit. We'll head to the next video.
Yeah, well, pretty close to it.
But now let's
Those
go
are
into
right.
the states that have the strictest and loosest squatter right laws. If you guys want to reference this later, it's going to be linked in my description. This is a brand new article, How Squatter Rights Compare in Different States. Let's look at only California and Florida, and then we'll look at the map. As far as California, squatters in the Golden State can claim ownership of a property after living there continuously for 5 years, as long as they have paid property taxes in the same period.
Oh, wow. So they can come in, invade the home, fix it up, pay the property taxes, and then somehow it's just theirs? What the heck? What is?
And in California, this is apparently the loosest laws, by the way. So this is the example of like, what an outrage!
What an outrage! That
And there are
actually paying
caveats.
the property
Squatters
taxes
must
on
have made improvements,
it. Yeah.
and the owner must have known of their presence and not made an effort to evict them. That's a tall order.
That's a lot of freaking caveats.
So in fact, if you don't get owner consent, that's, oh man. But what about property that's truly ownerless?
Yeah.
Right? Like the owners
Well,
died, it didn't fall to anybody else. Like, does it go to a bank?
I wonder what the legal requirement for notifying the owner is. Like if you just send a piece of mail to the last known address or post something at the curb. Or I don't even know what that would be, but
sounds like there's a lot. This is the loosest law,
to
and it has
invade homes.
Yeah, and so the outrage is just so crocodile tears.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so disingenuous.
All right. Well, let's see what he says about Florida, and then
like so easy, so easy.
It's so easy.
That's crazy, and they also have to do improvements to the property, and the owner must have known of their presence and not made an effort to evict them. Now, Florida, in the Sunshine State, squatters can claim ownership of a property after having lived there continuously for at least 7 years and having paid the property taxes, even if they did so without the owner's consent. First of all, I find squatter rights
so you don't need owner's
so
consent, but it's 7 years.
Yeah.
Instead of 5.
And you still have to pay the property taxes.
At least until the recent change in law, I think.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You basically have to live there for a period of time, pay the property taxes.
Look at these ones. What is that? New Jersey? 30 years you have to live there. In order
5's the minimum, right? And it looks like the only states that are 5 is California and Montana.
Yeah.
Everything else looks to be 7 to 10. Then you have a bunch of states that are 15, and it just gets darker.
18 to 20.
Looks like New York is 7 to 10. I could look it up, but I did look it up at one point, like a decade ago, when I was an Occupy only activist. I was kind of thinking about squatting, and not myself, but I was helping someone else do it actually. And of course, it was one of the houses that was demolished for the hospital redevelopment zone, gentrification in essence.
But yeah, New York City is one of the few places that I know of where there's been successful squatting of buildings that have then become legitimate, or so-called legitimate pieces of property in the eyes of the law.
I'd like to know of those models. I'd like to know of that.
Examples. There's one called C Squat. I'd have to rack my brain to come up with.
But it'll be like 3.
But there's a few that they actually became legal owners of the building, but it took a lot of people and a long time and literally fighting the cops and a lot of stuff to happen.
Right. Such a struggle. It's not something that you can reach a tipping point with, because it's such a struggle each time you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to change the laws to make it easier. And
Right.
so that's a fight that we need to think about. And that's, it's reformist. It's not direct action, I guess, but maybe enough squatting to get attention for a reform. But you need to find a friendly legislator. Maybe Julia Salazar is a candidate for that. She's a DSA senator.
Yeah. What was that that series from Seriously Wrong that we were talking about recently? They talked about
the library socialism.
Yeah. The fructose and what was the other part of that?
Usufruct.
Yeah.
Usufruct.
So I mean that is something that you could make a good campaign for its legitimacy
Around that, yeah.
It's like these people are not doing anything with these properties, and it's costing the city money to police them and maintain them and all this stuff. So
the struggle, talking to the most progressive people, is I think the question of where do we find the right people to do the squatting who are responsible / have an income so they could even improve it. Homeless, the proles, not the proles, but mostly actually people paycheck to paycheck also cannot really improve a property. That's sort of the argument for why landlords have to exist. These proles can't afford to take on the responsibilities of property ownership. That's why I have to keep renting. Or they say, well, on paycheck to paycheck, I really can't take on that responsibility even if I wanted to. So I'm better off renting. And that's slave morality, maybe. I don't know. But mentality. But it's also like even the most progressive people, it's like, well, the right people have to for the case of say our county land bank, which is properties that basically become ownerless through the act of state county seizure. Enough taxes are owed, your property gets confiscated and auctioned, and is the usual process. But instead of an auction, it goes into a land bank for the purpose of being sold to the next responsible owner. So instead of going to the highest bidder in an auction, it goes to a responsible owner who's going to particularly the priority is to someone who's going to owner occupy, and what have you. But of course, eventually you run out of candidates who are going to be owner occupiers. And now most of the people buying from the land bank are renting these buildings. But the priority is finding someone who is responsible. So when you apply for a land bank building, you need to basically have enough capital that you could start renovating, and you have to do the renovation within 2 years of getting it from the land bank. The trade-off is that the land bank properties are very cheap, right? But they're sold as is. So the lots are only $1,000 to $5,000.
Sure.
The real fixer uppers are only $15,000, and then there are the ones with moderate rehab needed, which will be $50,000, which is these are great bargains, but it comes with the strings that you have 2 years to rehab it, or they take it back.
Okay.
Which means you really need to have the financing ready and show and have references and hand over so they can review your bank account. So they know you have the money. And if we want a squatters' rights movement that has teeth, I guess there needs to be something equivalent to a big community investment fund or co-op that's doing this with the with houses, and then the squatters then put in sweat equity.
Yeah.
Which was something mentioned by a guy where when it comes to abandoned buildings, we should give it to those who can put in sweat equity, and the city provides the minimum capital needed to rehab. Let's say it's $30,000.
Sure.
Or an assessment's made about what it would take to make it literally just minimum habitable, not maximize rental income.
Yeah, right.
By putting in washer dryer and a new kitchen. But some rehab jobs, you want a new kitchen in there. But, the best kitchen or just the minimum kitchen?
Yeah, sure. There's definitely a minimum standard that could be established. And
It's there in the codes.
Yeah, right. So there you go.
But anyway, no strategizing.
Yeah.
Because we're not a housing committee.
Maybe do a slight improvement. But look at this, guys. This is the squatter rights by state. This is a time period for which an illegitimate tenant acquires certain rights by a U.S. state. And I'm really surprised that Texas is so low. So Texas is low, California is low, Louisiana.
7 to 10 years is low to you, guy?
Texas looks darker. It looks like the 15 color.
It might even be that, but
here's the problem with using one shade of like the
right?
blue,
Multiple
and
shades
it's
of blue
like
to
they're not.
differentiate.
There needs to be enough contrast between the colors.
Yeah.
I mean the tone of it. I mean, obviously use one color, but like there needs to be a bigger step between the light to the middle to the dark.
But like even if it was 7 to 10 years, like you're not coming and grabbing up 7 to 10 homes or whatever he said.
I know people are acting like it's like a 1 year or literally less,
Like
and
just,
it's like, oh my god, and it's theirs
showing up
it's
and then
theirs?
they sell it. Yeah.
Now maybe they're in the mindset of like, well, that's how long it takes to pay a mortgage, right? In order for the house to actually be yours, it would take 10 years of paying property taxes and the mortgage payment.
Yeah,
and they're getting it just paying the property taxes, but no mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So it's like, j'accuse.
But still, he's making such a.
It's an outrage.
Indiana seems to be the strictest, but very, very alarming, y'all. The fact that in every single state, there are some type of squatter rights. Come back here if you want to know and see if you can get information on your individual state. I really want to show you guys what I found out about the actual Constitution and what that says about private property rights. So I'll get into that. I want to show you guys one more video that is going to talk about potential solutions, because basically the cat's out of the bag now. People are starting to realize it's all fraud.
I wonder if any of his potential solutions include housing these people in any way or giving them any path to shelter.
I'm not even gonna frame. We shouldn't frame this stuff as just like housing for the most in need, right? We all need housing, and it's not good enough to me. It never was, like even 10 years ago, like when this housing affordability, like fuck affordability. What does affordable mean? I'm on the median income basically, and guess what? Median means half don't make that. So they're not. It's not affordable if the So I mean, but the standard of affordability is like 30. Like what was it? 70% of the median income. It's like we play this math game instead of just saying attainable housing.
Right.
Or we use attainable. Can it be attainable by anyone? Not just those with a full-time with benefits job, with the security of a job with security, a job that like allows for a vacation so people can stop and fix things. It's like it takes time when you need to make house repairs.
For sure.
Or you just do it on the weekends and you have no fucking, leisure time. Fuck.
Yep. All right, let's see these solutions.
You pretty much have no rights whatsoever to be in these properties. So there is solution. Listen to this video, because these people call themselves the squatter hunters.
Yeah, Micah and Sam, it's an incredible story. He has dedicated his life to helping homeowners clear their properties of squatters, and he's fighting to change the laws that allow these intruders to do what they do.
Vermin.
He recently removed a squatter from a home here in the Hollywood Hills. The victim, an elderly woman. So meet the squatter hunter.
What do you have to say for yourself? You going to talk to me now?
Tonight you want to talk?
Yeah,
have a civil conversation?
Yeah.
At 9 o'clock in the night? Are you serious?
Caught in the act, caught on camera, squeezing out squatters.
I have a lease for this property.
I don't care.
You've heard and seen the horror stories, many here on KTLA. Intruders gaining entry or breaking into unoccupied homes and residences, in some cases mansions, throwing wild parties and living rent and carefree. The number of cases seems to be growing.
They're carefree, Zach.
Oh, the poor billionaires. Oh,
they're carefree.
Carefree. Yeah.
Fancy free.
I weep.
Land of the free. How
Oh.
dare they live in the land of the free?
So they want us to feel bad for these multimillionaires, these billionaires, but not people that don't have homes. Like the billionaires are the true victims.
The narrative here is that the people who are squatting, the people partying in that mansion, they're not those in need. You know, they're not the deprived,
right?
And I can take that in stride, because I don't give we don't give a shit if they're just in need or not. It's empty, it's not being used, and they're using it. Now, of course, if there's a matter of responsibility, of course they're using it, but they're not going to clean it up, and they're going to make a mess of it, and stuff like that. And that was the case with this story. Another videos is a case where it wasn't abandoned or vacant by some landlord. It was simply a guy who took a job in another city for like 3 months. And when he came back, like someone basically broke in and was like, they were using his house. Or no, it wasn't a house. I think it was an apartment. So that's rough and wrong. It wasn't really squatting. That was a home invasion, I think. But you had people claiming they were tenants, even though they weren't the leaseholder. But that was an apartment. In fact, that was the weird thing about it. But that's what made it different. He wasn't a homeowner. It was his apartment that was apparently like completely like, and nightmare empty.
Yeah, so they just thought it was unoccupied, huh?
Or they were watching him and waited for him to leave, but that's seems on the nose, considering it was like an apartment complex. It wasn't like some home you'd watch.
For sure.
Wasn't Home Alone.
And one man close to the situation says many offenders are not necessarily homeless, but rather career criminals looking for easy street. Well, now they've met their match.
I'd say, anti-squat.
He just says that, and us being reporters doing our due diligence, we swallowed everything he said whole and didn't question it one bit.
Even if they are, this counts as a victimless crime to me.
Right, but like
so fuck off. I'm actually glad if that's the career criminal's grift. Have at it. All the best. Better that than something that actually does harm people.
Right.
Squatter activist, squatter hunter, squatter remover. Just do what I have to help people get their squatters out.
Such a version saying I'm a squatter activist.
Look at the hatred in his eyes. Oh my god.
Get out. This is Cap. Get out.
Get out. Yeah.
Like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
People might call you a type of exterminator.
Yeah, well.
57-year-old California native Flash Shelton is devoting his life to squashing squatters and helping homeowners. It all started in 2019 when his mother was selling her Northern California house after his father died. While the home was empty and on the market, 7 strangers moved in, furniture and all. Local law enforcement said there was nothing they could do. That's when Flash sprang into action.
The stuff is in the house. You told me that it was accidentally delivered and it was in the garage.
No, I didn't say it was in the garage.
Figured out that if they could take a home, I could take a home. Squatters sometimes, in many cases, have a fake lease. So the first thing I did was I had my mom write a lease in my name.
He waited for an open window, no pun intended, when the squatters had left the property.
Went in and put up cameras, secured the back door that had been broken into. I have to start putting stuff in the driveway, and so that I can lock it up, because once I leave, you're not going to be able to get back in.
Shelton seized an opportunity, found a new calling, and became the squatter hunter. His operation has exploded with viral videos on his website and YouTube channel, the clips receiving millions and millions of views.
You ain't going to be sneaking up on me in the middle of the night.
Flash Shelton's fees start at $5,000. He always works with law enforcement, and he does his homework to assess the threat before moving in.
Okay, so a $5,000 fee to get help with your squatter problem. Seems like America's got some heroes standing by, and it also seems like we have to have civil heroes standing by because it doesn't appear that enforcement is even.
You know how heroes are always like taking fees before they save you?
Well, in capitalism, to capitalists, it is heroic to actually charge for such a service or any service. I mean, to give away. Hey, as one great hero said, if you're good at something, never do it for free. Now, would you like to see me see this pencil disappear?
Wow. Man, just the I don't even know how to describe it, but just the look in these people's eyes, the way they relish these people being kicked out of homes, hunted, crushed like roaches, like wow.
It's I can as someone in a family with property, 2 properties here. But we're owner occupiers, at least not next door, but I technically count as an owner occupier. Well, I'm not an owner though; it's in trust. But I can understand the grief of like in the case of Flash here, they're selling the mother's home.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not like they're landlording,
right?
But that's where like the humane thing to do. All right. If let's say it was in my position, I would try to work out something where it becomes you rent to own instead of like you said it's on the market,
right?
Why not sell to these people then?
Hey,
have them write up them a lease and say, all right, you can stay, but pay us rent, and it could be rent to own or hell, even just retain ownership, and then they're renting. Now, of course, that was the case. They want it off their hands. I probably believe so. They don't want to be building managers or do the work of landlording. So, but hey, the squatter family there, they probably were like, we're not intending to pay you anything. So I can, I can understand the frustration of that. It's like, because hey, if you're working class or even middle class, property, because of our system, is your only asset. It's the only thing of value that you have.
Yeah.
So if that was, undercut, then that could put the mother's retirement or her retirement, cash in jeopardy.
Sure.
And so it's more of the struggle between working people that is being, that these reactionaries are fighting. Instead of class war, it's what do you call it when people within the same class fight? But I mean, yes, it is a matter of like their middle class and working class. They're fighting the working class instead of the people above, the bankers, because that's the way the totem pyramid, capitalist pyramid works.
Absolutely.
And we want to turn it around. That's the project, but that's the world. They're being realists, I guess, but the hustler way, capitalist way.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the glee of like, oh, these roaches, you're something of an exterminator. Yeah. Yes, that's very ugly, regardless of the conflict, and some of the harm that it isn't quite fair, but none of it is.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's finish this one.
Enforcing the situation. But regardless, it seems like the epidemic, the crisis, if you will, the squatter crisis is spreading, and more people are
Like
trying to
shoplifting.
take
Sources, my own vibes.
There's a lot of TikToks about squatters.
TikTok rate has exploded. Yeah.
Squatters on TikTok.
I don't know. Maybe we should
gloating
from this dude.
Yeah,
I think
we're
we've
almost done.
Gotten about as much as we're gonna get.
There is a palate cleanser. in our half hour here, but let's see. That's a short,
more bizarre business story. We're going to talk about the headlines about the young man who moved into a $2.5 million mansion near Miami without paying a.
This is the national broadcaster.
Yeah, ABC National News. Yep.
Dime. We first told you about this story Friday morning, but we're now learning that this
Here's
has
a
become
hero.
a national
This is our
trend,
hero.
and some of the people doing it are even connected to an anti-government group the FBI classifies as domestic terrorists.
Boca Raton, one of the poshest zip codes in Florida, is abuzz this morning over what is happening inside this $2.5 million, 7,500 square foot waterside mansion. The bank foreclosed a couple of years ago, but now a 23-year-old named Andre Barbosa has simply moved in.
Nobody's happy. We all spent a lot of money to live on this street.
Barbosa is using an obscure legal concept on the books in every state called adverse possession, which says if you live in an empty home for a certain amount of time, it's yours. Adverse possession is being attempted all over America. Susan Weidman took over a series of homes in the Atlanta area.
I filed adverse possession back in February as Susan Weidman at the DeKalb courthouse. So I'm not.
Okay, this lady's not a squatter. I'm just going to say it. This lady looks like a real estate
Several
agent
properties.
who's found the one weird trick to get infinite homes.
Yes. So that's the I guess the mixed was it the fuzziness here where like we want to tighten squatters' rights and Democrats are on board with doing it to because they want everyone to be a homeowner, and why would anyone want to be a homeowner if it could just be done illicitly or in the gray zone? But yeah, you got scammers like this woman, or like, and these are the stories that the reactionaries will use rather than the homeless person who just wants to get out of the rain or cold.
Not just, transient squatter here.
This $3.3
She isn't
million
a transit
house near
squatter.
She even said she's not a squatter. Okay, cool. Good example of squatters popping up all over.
But these are expensive homes. They're not abandoned ramshackles. These are mansions and mansions.
Raleigh, complete with an elevator, got caught up in this whole mess when Sean Pendergraft claimed he owned the house.
It's not a scam. Everything we're doing is lawful.
There have always been squatters, but the housing crisis has put the phenomenon on steroids. Some of the people using adverse possession are connected to a sometimes violent anti-government movement known as sovereign citizens, who believe U.S. laws do not apply to them.
Oh, wow. I did not expect the Sov Cits to be dragged into this fray.
But doesn't it make sense for them to be doing this?
I guess so.
But it's definitely a way for this national news outlet to basically kind of say, like, any of this, they're all like, they just don't have any respect for the law or society. It's like, hey, that's sort of what makes them the perfect Americans. They're the ultimate rugged individualists,
That's right.
Like
complete
what the
mavericks.
fuck?
They should call themselves housing mavericks.
I think you may be onto something. I'm gonna write that down.
But yeah, it's a perfect way for them to paint everyone who is for squatters' rights as some.
Because squat
conspiracy
isn't a like, it doesn't have a positive feel to it. Squat,
yeah, it's pretty.
All those consonants,
Yeah.
But housing maverick.
Yeah.
Police officer walks up to someone who is claiming a house now belongs to him without any basis at all, is handed a big sheaf of documents which are incomprehensible, and I think very often the officers ultimately feel that they're forced to go back to headquarters and try and figure out what's going on before they can actually toss someone in the slammer.
I met a young sovereign named Robert Peterson who moved into this foreclosed home in Idaho.
They're the enemy. They're the enemy of anybody who wants to live free.
One expert on sovereigns found evidence to suggest that Andre Barbosa...
Now, of course, the sovereign citizens are right-wingers. That's why the lawyer from the Southern Poverty Law Center was talking about them.
He knows about
in
them. Yes.
In a critical way, because
because they're wackos. They believe that sheriffs are the ultimate law in every land, and that the U.S. is secretly a corporation, so we don't have to follow any of its laws.
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of a point there as far as
there's
capitalist
a little bit of a
state,
point, but that's
being a capitalist
like
state,
conspiracy theorist. a nugget of truth,
but not
filled with a
literal.
bunch of
Not,
bullshit.
but they're not. They're being too literal about it.
Yeah. Well, and they also, they think that. Yeah. There's a
They
whole
can
bunch
only
of...
be tried in an admiralty court.
That's right. Well, they all
like
think that they're judges too. They just appoint each other judges, and it's a whole big thing.
In Boca Raton is connected to a sovereign group called Divine Province, based on the language Barbosa used to justify moving into the mansion and the fact that his name is on the group's website. Before you get any ideas about trying to use adverse possession, consider that the sheriffs forced Robert Peterson out of this house, and remember Susan Weidman, arrested for racketeering, and Sean Pendergraph, also arrested for obtaining property by false pretense.
All the legal arguments he may make or the documents he may file will all end up leading to the same conclusion, and that is that he gets kicked out because he has no legal right to be there.
As for Andre Barbosa, he may be running out of time in that mansion in Boca. Bank of America has now filed a claim in court claiming it is the rightful owner of the home.
It's so crazy that they're arguing that the law's on their side.
They are, and they're kind of 1/3 right.
Fascinating story. All right.
Another property that
the non-person is truly the best owner here. Thank God this non-person corporation, Bank of America, has stepped up.
property.
Right.
And that's odd because, like, did they not have claim over it before, but now they're going to claim it? I always love that guy in the beginning, though. It's like, we paid a lot of money to live on this block. Well, I'm sorry, you're a scam, sir.
Right, because like you paid a lot of money, but then you never lived there. Like,
well, no, the guy lives there, but it's the fact that, like, you know, the sovereign citizen wasn't paying a lot.
Oh, I see. So yeah.
But it's odd that it was like it is a big mansion, and it wasn't a group of sovereign citizens. It was just him,
just one dude, yeah.
Or it was. I don't know the particulars, but again, as you said, the successful squats are like the big community. There's always got to be a bunch of people there. You got to be diligent and keep. And although maybe you're thinking of the ones in London, there's squats in London.
I was thinking they're in Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
But I always love the story because at Left Forum there was a panel about Right to the City, and one of the panelists was talking about I think it was Germany or maybe France, but it was an elementary school that was abandoned, and it was basically taken over by community groups, and they basically made a community center. And after much fighting with the city, the cops, always having people there doing programs, the city negotiated with them to give them ownership for $1 or something.
That's cool. Yeah. So again, have to have a big organization and a lot of work put in to
and you have to resist eviction like a few times. Like you have to beat off eviction, like and show that with by the way, not by fighting the cops literally, but by having enough people there that the cops back off, or make it's impossible for them to do it.
To own a house worth an estimated $1.6 million in Sydney's inner west. The man started renting out the property after he found it empty 20 years ago. Reporter Lily Mayers has the details.
The man's name is Bill Gertos, and he is a property developer, but he was also a tax accountant. He says he was here on this street in 1998 visiting a client when he came across the house behind me. He said it looked empty and he knocked on the door. It was locked at the front, so he went round the back and he found the door was sitting on its hinges, and he went in and saw that it was empty, it was in disrepair, and that there was rubbish and evidence that squatters had been there. So he says he asked around the neighbourhood and found out that the last tenant had died earlier that year and that no one had been living here. So he came back with a builder and changed the locks. He made repairs and renovations until the house was fit for his own tenants to move in. And it wasn't until last year that he filed to have legal ownership under adverse possession or squatting laws, because he'd had sort of maintained the house for over 12 years. And that's when the relatives of the last listed owner, who died in 1947, were notified, and that they challenged him in court. This is a pretty tight-knit community.
So they didn't think to do anything for this property for 12 years, but only when he finally goes to file a claim to get the deed.
After he renovated, because he is a property developer, he's capital, he's a capitalist, sure, yeah, but he did something okay as far as like, it's kind of odd that like you don't see more of this, you know, developers basically taking properties in this way. It's like because they have the capital and they can just sit on, you know. It's weird that it doesn't happen more in this way, but this is Australia as well. But but yeah, it is always isn't it funny? Now there's family that pops up and wants
come out of the woodwork.
The deed.
They want to assert their rights.
God,
they probably would have all gone to their graves, never having thought or know of that property.
I'm sure he has a strong case though, because of the average possession is literally for this kind of situation more than any other.
Yeah.
So the situations where it's literally, the situations where it's like the mother just moved out and a squatter moved in right after or something, you know, that, and they're trying to sell it. That's dicey and not so moral.
No.
But when it's vacant property owned by Bank of America, it sees these means.
Right. I agree.
Community, there's been quite a lot of controversy around this decision. Most of the neighbours knew that there were renovations happening over the years, but they'd never seen Mr. Gertos. Many have heard about the case. One neighbour I spoke to this morning wasn't happy with the decision. Here's what she had to say earlier.
It's not fair. What he did is not fair. He come around the neighborhood. He asked for many questions, and then he ended up got the house. Why? Is the owner should get the house.
Another neighbour was summoned in the case. She gave an affidavit.
But the tenant died, and then the owner like didn't do anything.
Yeah, right.
Like what the fuck?
12 years.
So like, and this woman's like, "Oh God, oh why this is justice." It's so yeah.
I don't know why they picked her to interview either. Like, doesn't seem to.
Maybe she's the only one who agreed because she opposed it, and everyone else was okay. They obviously answered his question and didn't stonewall him by saying, "Oh, we're gonna be in solidarity with our neighbor who has never been here." Because again, the tenant died, meaning this house was being rented, so it's going from landlord to landlord in this case. So there's no real hero here, but this is an example. I picked this video short and to the point about like it's not as simple as exploited to exploiter. It's our system of property relations, right?
Yep.
So
definitely
a critique.
She hadn't seen him around, and that there are many around here that say it was an unfair decision. They're not happy about it. There are even some neighbours who dispute that Mr. Gertos had taken over the home in 1998. But despite...
I mean, he was a landlord. He probably sent his crew or people that he contracts with to go renovate it. He's probably not doing it literally himself.
No.
So, yeah.
And it's been 12 years. I mean, wait, 98. When was this?
They said it was only after 12 years that he finally asserted his right to the property.
Because that's probably how long the law is in Australia.
Right. Yeah.
It's so long.
That's a lot.
And now the neighbors like
no one to do anything with
the neighbors, but I guess the neighbors didn't even know what was happening. But like there was a new tenant in the house, so obviously they must have noticed. Like, oh, the Bakerville place is they're renting again. They got a new tenant, huh?
Yeah.
They just didn't care because people don't need to know their neighbors.
Right.
Some community, right?
I think that's what it was. That's what it was. They had no idea what's happening, but now that they do, they're so outraged.
They're outraged about it. Yeah.
Right.
It affects them.
Despite the outrage here on the street, the judge's decision does clearly recognise Mr. Gertos as successfully taking and maintaining custody of this land.
Cool. I mean, yeah, I don't think that's So terrible.
Well, tonight a woman is outraged after learning that a squatter swooped in just days after she moved out of her home. And even more surprising, the squatter told deputies she thought it was okay. Our Chris Trakeman joins us live.
She thought it was okay.
The suspect says she was taking advantage of a Florida law known as adverse possession. But the sheriff says once she set foot inside this home, she became nothing more than a burglar and a scammer.
Basically, this was my dream home. And, you know, to lose it, it broke my heart.
Cynthia Wesley says when her husband went on disability, she had
your
no
dreams. I'm gonna be mean. Her dreams suck. Yeah. She needs new dreams.
Dreams to own a home that you don't live in. Okay.
But it's also an ugly as shit home. So that's also
it really is. I'm so glad they're not doing those way overdone garish entryways with the pillars anymore. That was a bad period.
For all those times your guests need to wait outside your doors.
Yeah.
Double doors too.
Home to foreclosure. After she moved out, a neighbor noticed lights on inside the house.
She said, "Somebody's living in your house." And I said, "No."
But she just moved out. It's not her house. She's been foreclosed.
Locks and moved in.
I know,
she
emotionally
was
it's her
outraged
house.
that after going through the legal foreclosure process, someone could simply steal her house.
Oh, I was very angry. My first thought was, oh no, if I can't live in this thing for free, you certainly are not going to live in it.
Sheriff.
Wow. That's a great takeaway, lady. Bad things happen to you, so you're going to make sure that everyone else gets screwed over as well.
But it's also like the prison of pure ideology of this is how it works. Yeah. I went through the legal foreclosure process. Well, no, that it was done to her. Like she lost her house fair and square because she couldn't live there for free. Right? She is following the rules. She's pursuing the American dream by doing what she's told.
Right.
And her dream home, which I assume she earned through a lifetime of labor, was taken away.
Yeah.
And
which sucks and probably should not be a thing, but to turn around and then have anything to do with the people that come after. It's like, I don't drive by my childhood home and make sure that there's no squatters in there still. Because if there was, I would go beat them up or something. Like,
well, there was a certain ennui that I had when after my grandmother moved out of the old Yonkers place, which they moved into with the GI Bill in the mid 50s. Maybe even 51 or something. When my father was born in 49. And yeah, they must have bought it right after the war. And they had, let's see, I'm at the age of 80 something, she's not moving far, but she's moving, and we moved everything out of the house, and it was a new bio was found, obviously. And they changed the blinds in the windows, and we drove past it. And I almost kind of regret we did, because I had such ennui, driving past and the shutters had changed, and probably imagining all the other changes the new owners were making or made. And I'm like, well, that really burns, because, a lot of childhood memories going to my grandma's place, grandparents, all the family meals and stuff. And I stayed over there a few times. But it goes to show that we shouldn't have this culture of pure personal ownership and of things like property or houses, that you are the temporary custodians,
right,
and stewards, and our responsibility is in taking care of something that we're using. And I'm really of the mind of full state ownership of everything, but everything is used and by everyone has a right to using it. The other version of communist thing was the program from the Spanish town with a communist mayor, where you basically get to pay, your rent is $99 a month for life. The city provides the building materials and the money to build a house, and you basically pay this town $99 a month for life. It's a lifelong lease, basically. So you're a tenant of the town, but it's cheap, and your lease is forever.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense because there is some money then going in for maintenance and renovation and stuff like that. So, but it's never going to break the bank for you.
And it ensures that if you leave or die, then like a land trust, the house doesn't go to the highest bidder or corporation or some scammer. It goes to back to the town, who can then lease it to the next person,
to someone else who needs it, right?
Someone else, right? So that's that's the argument. That's my argument for the statist approach of social housing.
Yeah. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong
with the lifetime lease, and that's the usufruct / library socialism, where it applies to homes too.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of, instead of buying books and building libraries, you build the housing too. Assumingly bonds. Bonds and loans, which the cities can loan themselves money, I think.
Yeah.
It was brought up by, I was reading the report. I know we're running out of time here, but I read there was a commission for public broadband in Albany. Just a year or so ago, it was published, and they listed out all the ways it could be financed. And as I think they listed, city can loan itself the money for it and pay it back with the fees. Interestingly, when it gave all the other models, like the rates weren't really that much less than what I'm paying for Spectrum. Sometimes the rates are like $70, but I suppose after 2 years, my rate would be higher than that. And the fact that it would stay at 70 and not, and no other fees or whatever are added to it. Though there was a town where it was actually lower, and it was like they had a basic level internet, which I would be okay with, and I think that was like 40. So that's what, if we had public broadband in Albany, I would like, it needs to be like 50 or under, for the lowest level, I guess, which is the basic. And this is the level for, or actually a model pitched was in the document was, well, the whole point is like, we need it because you had all the students who needed internet for, home stuff, and they didn't have any internet. So we had stories of students in Albany needing to go to use the Wi-Fi at McDonald's or a fast food joint in order to do their homework or to even go to class. And that's an unacceptable reality for the school district.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is why they'd be one of the partners or whatever.
Deputies arrested 31-year-old Stacy Fuchs, who was charged with burglary and grand theft. Fuchs told investigators she did research on the internet and believed she had the right to occupy the vacated house.
I don't know if audacity is the right word, that they moved in during the night, and it was kind of scary to know that you could do that.
I cannot understand how anybody can just call a locksmith, have them change the locks, and they're in your home.
Sheriff Grady Judd says he wants to send him.
I think this lady is just mad that she didn't think of it first.
We can joke, but I don't think she's smart enough. She definitely has the air of like, I could never. Again, her tone is, I can't imagine being so creative. And the other woman they interviewed, I guess a neighbor, was like, the audacity. Now, of course, audacity is actually a positive quality to me. It's audacious,
right?
It's
it's
bold.
Yeah, right.
And these are the most normie, milquetoast Floridians.
They absolutely are.
Florida people, Florida people are just all over the place.
Think this is the general.
They want to be as boring as possible. That's why they're there. It's kind of interesting because Florida is either a place to be really interesting or to be the most boring person.
Yeah, right. There's not a lot of in between.
It's a land of contrast.
It sure is.
Like Vegas.
That he's on the lookout for those who would illegally break into vacant houses.
Really not a problem for us. it's going to be a problem for them because they're going to squat in the county jail when we arrest them.
This is the most mean-spirited.
The Sheriff Judd says that he is working on at least 20 other cases just like this.
They're going to be squatting in the county jail.
If you're in the foreclosure process, if possible, go back and check on your house to make sure that nobody is squatting on your property. We're live in Polk County. Chris Trenkman, ABC Action News.
And next to a warning.
So this was like a public service announcement kind of story of like, this bad thing could happen to you because obviously if you're watching this, you're a property owner this would be a nightmare.
Who's not even.
And speaking of nightmare, I use the word nightmare.
No one is.
Home rental nightmare, Airbnb. So this one involves an Airbnb user. So here's the added level of like,
You're right.
Does the consequences of your actions catch up with you, landlord? All right.
About a growing trend for American families earning extra cash by renting their home on a popular website. Tonight, one woman couldn't get those renters to leave. Here's ABC's Candace Gibson with what you need to know before opening your home to strangers.
This is what one California homeowner called a
It's
living
almost
nightmare.
like there's risks in being a small business
the Santa
owner.
Cruz house, rummaging through the refrigerator cabinets, the homeowner standing on the side, helpless.
Do you feel like a prisoner in your own home?
Absolutely. I have 8 security cameras in my house right now.
33-year-old Poonam Sandhu renting her master bedroom to this couple through Airbnb last month. Weeks into the contract, agreeing to transition to a cash-only payment not involving Airbnb. And that's when Sandhu says the payment stopped coming.
So this is just a scam. Like, they made her take it off of the Airbnb thing so there wouldn't be a paper trail, and then she got scammed. Wow. I'm sure this is a growing trend.
I'm still having trouble empathizing with her because she's
of course not. Like
Airbnb her master bedroom, and why would she agree to not using the site? Like, isn't that
why would
the
she
most
agree to
sus
that? They
thing?
must have offered a lot of money that they didn't pay.
Or it was a lot of money to begin with, and to keep them paying, staying, like maximize her income. I mean, this is the capitalist way. Not to, stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this just
or maybe her mortgage is so onerous she needs the extra income.
Maybe it is, but
so she's.
Could be a victim of bad roommate situation. Like your roommate decides that they're not going to pay the rent anymore, but they won't leave.
We're missing a lot of context, and obviously these local news stories from ABC.
Dig in too far.
And you can see the trend. These are all ABC affiliates. It's probably because of the YouTube I was clicking through.
Yeah,
these
that could
videos. And because I just think the hits kept coming, and I was just like, "Oh, that one's fun. That one's fun." There's something different about all of these. That's what's kind of interesting about it.
All right. Well, let's get through this one. Let's see if we can get through any more.
I asked them very politely, it's time for you guys to go.
And did they go?
They did not.
Surveillance cameras rolling as the duo is
So I asked
served
them politely
papers,
again.
but they refuse to leave. The shirtless male seen creeping throughout the house at night. California law on their side.
California law allows the tenants to get 30-day notice because they have to find a new place to live.
They're hippies,
And
long
some
hair.
Tenants have been using that to their advantage.
Sandhu finally agreeing to pay $1,700.50 to get the pair to leave her own house, figuring it's less than a lengthy eviction process.
Nightmare?
Absolute nightmare. Worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. Scariest thing.
Court documents indicating this same couple has an ongoing claim against them for not paying rent elsewhere. Now Airbnb telling ABC News, we strongly encourage hosts to
So
only
they're
book through
definitely
Airbnb.
scammers.
They
These
mention-
aren't like
Yeah.
we don't feel for these people in
They're
particular.
not trying to take over her
'Cause
property either.
it is a very moral thing to like do this and basically like, oh no, they're still gonna be here, and we're just gonna stay and live here while they're still here, because she wasn't doing the short-term rental, like she was doing the proper Airbnb of sharing her house.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what makes it strange. Like, but I guess the minds of sociopaths, it's like, oh yeah, we'll just completely ignore you. You're a non-person to us. You're just a means to have a place and not pay because, you know, housing should be a right, and we're going to live that out and the means available. Very morally, of course, and no cost consciousness whatsoever.
Right.
Change policy to financially penalize anyone who overstays an Airbnb reservation. Other experts encouraging those renting out their homes to do background checks. Candace Gibson, ABC News, Santa Cruz, California.
You gotta subscribe, Zach.
Hi, I'm Olivia
Nice
with
to
Good Life Property Management, and today we're going to go over squatters' rights in California.
This is the more neutral one. Maybe it's her pink hair, but you know, she's a little less like aggro.
Worst nightmare, but by staying informed and taking preventative measures, you can avoid this kind of situation.
But it's still negative.
Squatting, in the simplest of terms, is when someone moves into a property and takes possession even though it's not theirs. They're typically there without the
Even
owner's
though
knowledge,
it's
and
not
sometimes it can
theirs.
even be a tenant that used to live in the property but is supposed to have vacated. You might be wondering, what's the difference between squatting and trespassing? Well, trespassing is considered a criminal offense. Squatting is usually considered a civil matter. So typically, on occasion, when you call the police to notify them of squatters or trespassing, they will come assess the situation and determine if it is trespassing and then proceed with an arrest or process for eviction, anything like that. If they deem it a civil matter, then you'll need to contact your attorney immediately. Either way, you should be contacting your attorney, whether the police deem it trespassing or squatting. So California has some of the most lenient laws for squatters in the entire country. So typically, if you come to the home, encounter squatters, they might claim what they call, and what some landlords call, squatters' rights. This is typically referring to the legal term of adverse possession,
rights.
which is how they attempt to claim possession of the vacant property. In California, there are 4 requirements that squatters have to meet to claim adverse possession. Number 1 is hostile. This means that the squatter knows the property is not theirs or has no regard for the original property owner, and they claim it as their own property. Second is actual possession. This is when they take care of the property as if it is their own, meaning they likely are paying property taxes, associated bills, and things like that. Third is open and notorious possession. This means that their occupancy cannot be hidden from surrounding neighbors or anyone coming to the property. They're openly acting as if the property is their own. And lastly, exclusive and continuous possession. This means that the squatter is not sharing occupancy with other parties, and they're occupying the property for a continuous period, which in California has to be a minimum of 5 years uninterrupted. If they were previously a tenant at the property, the 5 years starts once their tenancy ends. You might be wondering why these adverse possession laws exist and why a squatter is able to lay claim to a property that is not theirs. Simply put, the government would rather have someone taking care of and maintaining a property over a vacant one to prevent waste.
Seems
So
reasonable
here's
to
what
me.
you can do if you find squatters at your property. Like mentioned previously, you'll likely want to call the police just to see if it is a trespassing issue or a civil issue. Once they make that distinction, you'll at least have a record with them of the incident. In either case, you're going to want to consult your attorney to see what the best next steps are. In regards to what you can't do, you can't cut the utilities or electricity, you cannot threaten them, and you cannot attempt to remove them yourself. At the very least, it's a sticky situation, and at the worst, it's a dangerous one, and can also have serious legal implications. The best thing you can do to prevent the possibility of squatters is to make sure that you're the one paying your property taxes and stopping by the property fairly often to make sure that no one has entered it without your permission. By doing these two things,
be
you're
a
able to prevent
responsible steward of property.
Don't be an absentee slumlord.
Don't be an absentee slumlord.
them from
Best
claiming
advice
adverse
that these-
possession, and you'll make sure that your home is still in good condition while vacant. If you don't live in the area, you can always hire a property management company, as they typically will stop by their vacant properties every now and then to make sure that there is no trespassers or squatters. Additionally, if you own rental property, make sure you look into your state laws regarding adverse possession and squatters' rights. At the very least, you'll be informed should this situation occur. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Well, that's about all the time we have tonight. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad
We've got some more for next time, including the more positive, empathetic real estate person is, I think, the next video. It's a little longer, which is good. We'll start with that. And then there's the video I just added where in New York, and Florida just did this. So it's Florida and New York only so far, but I'm sure other states will follow. Interesting that it's Florida, New York, but actually makes perfect sense. The states with the most inflated real estate market. That's where this distinction is being made now on the state level between taking it out of civil affairs and making any squatting a criminal offense, basically. I don't know if it's completely ending squatters' rights, but if there is an owner who's laying claim, then it's going to be treated as trespassing. So if you're going to squat, I guess our advice is make sure it's actually unclaimed, vacant. No owner's going to show up or expect a hostile eviction. And you can't claim, possession tendency or whatever.
Sure.
Which is what I would suggest anyway. Because otherwise you do actually have to fight somebody who is only maybe a class above you. And you're definitely not going to fight a corporation and win.
No, definitely
not. Though there are some properties are just owned by LLCs 3 states away, and it's just like a mystery of who it really is or what. It's a tricky thing, and that's sort of why I suppose a lot of leftists are working more on the tenants side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Expanding and trying to shore up tenants' rights and thus public house, not public, but just social housing and the kind of statist directions of things, and not a bottom up taking things one house at a time, which can be done, but it's not really a path forward.
No, not really. Not really. But, yeah, well.
So in the meantime, I just want to make a call to action. Donate to the Jill Stein campaign, particularly the ballot drive fund. We are competing with RFK for ballot for petitioners, paid petitioners, because paid petitioners are in fact needed to really get enough signatures. I mean, volunteers can do some of the lifting, but it's we're volunteers, right? It really is. We can do my friend or the co-chair of the party, Peter. He went to SUNY Albany, the big university, and he said he got 30 signatures in an hour, which is really good. So we'll be doing more of that. Though he could do it on his day off, so because he's a professor at a different SUNY college. So I don't know if I can get the SUNY when classes are in session or whatever, but I don't know. It stresses me out. But this week is more not focused on petitioning because of Passover. So happy Passover, or a solemn Passover, if it means anything these days. But there's a Jewish Forces for Peace event. Anyway.
Cool. That sounds good. All right. Well, I look forward to the next time we meet and learning more about this issue. So.
All right. Till next Tuesday, hopefully.
Till next Tuesday.
Actually, let me. I'll let you know later.
Sure.
Actually, I may not want. Well, no. We could do next Tuesday. Yeah, I just have to get petitioning in beforehand.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one. All right. That was Dan Platt of the 3 Left Show. Nadar is telling me to get a job. I have a job. Thank you. Also not a liberal, so just to clear that up, I'm a leftist. So I don't care what you say about Joe Biden. I don't care what you say about Democrats. It's not gonna hurt my feelings, friend. Scapegoating landlords, salt of the earth landlords. How dare we besmirch their good names? Yeah, that's gonna do it for the stream tonight. Let's see, I guess the next time we'll be getting together is Sunday. So look out for that one. And until then, have a good night.